This is the
BrighterSpectrum podcast.
where we illuminate the world of parenting children with autism. I'm CJ, a proud dad to a wonderful 6-year-old with autism. Through my journey, I've discovered the challenges, triumphs, and unique experiences that come with raising a child on the spectrum. Inspired by those experiences, I created this space where parents like you can find understanding, share stories, and learn from each other. Join me as we explore insights, strategies, and support, all while celebrating the brighter spectrum of our children's lives. Now, let's dive in and cast light on this path together. Previously, we had friend of the show, Joanne Padilla, on with us to discuss her children and something she called the caring table. Today, we're joined by her husband, Jesus, who is going to talk to us a little bit about how his experiences go, and we'll get a male perspective from the same family. And so it's going to be like a really cool way for us to kind of take a look at how two different people can look at the same thing and view it in two different ways, and the similarities and differences there. Jesus, thanks for joining me today. I'm really glad to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here.
So, Jesus, before we really get started here, what made you wanted to come onto the show? Because I know Joanne reached out to me and said, "Hey, Jesus, listen to the show, and he'd like to come on." What was it about it that made you want to come do this?
As you had said, it's a matter of looking at different perspectives. You know, because I mean, my life. I don't know. My wife chose the kind of the motherly side, and with the fatherly side, it's a little different.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree on that. Like being a dad and dealing with your kids and looking at them is so different than the way a mom perceives um, how things are going. So I guess let's just start at the beginning here and talk to us about, what it was like. Cause like a Joanne had said previously that like these children were adopted and that whole process, and, talk to us a little bit about that. And then what it was like coming into the lives of these kids on the spectrum.
Well, uh, basically, we tried to adopt. We actually went through 13 foster children before we were able to adopt the three that we have. Um, and each child has had its own issues, and it was sad that we had to let a lot of them go because we couldn't handle their issues. At least we were honest enough to know our limitations. Now these three children that we had received came to us at a very young age, so we didn't quite know the true effects of what was going to be. The other children were older, so we saw the problems straight out. um, but it didn't make us love any one of those any less. You know, we still tended to them and cared for them as best we could. But as I said, we know our limitations, and when you have a child that pretty much hospitalized my wife several times, it's time to let them go because we're not going to be able to handle a scenario like that, especially since I was working. So, uh,
Oh, so I don't think Joanne went over that with us
yeah.
when we interviewed her, that you guys had previous foster children before adopting.
Yeah, we went through a 10-year cycle of fostering. So it was a lengthy process.
Hmm.
We
Okay.
even the last three children that we had, the the Christian, which is our oldest child, he came to us free and clear for adoption, and then the mother shows up because they were about to terminate her rights, and they couldn't find her. And they found her because she gave birth to Christian's brother. uh, so so they handed her termination papers, and she decided to come for a visit to see what the child that she had left behind looked like. And that created a chaos within everything. And then the court started questioning, everything, because now they wanted because when she came, they tested her for drugs, they found her to be positive. So then they took the second child away. And that child came to us because the courts decided that he wanted both siblings living together. And then the question of whether we were going to be able to adopt Christian became a question mark because of the fact that the judge wanted the two children back together, and one was cleared for adoption, the other one was returned to parents.
Mm,
So it created a lot of chaos in our lives, and that dragged on for many years.
wow.
So,
That that had to be emotionally heavy to deal with too.
oh yeah, yeah, and it was sad because like Christian, as we continued to work with him, we realized a lot of limitations. Now we knew that he was a drug addicted baby, so we knew that that was going to create issues. But the extent of the issues was way beyond anything that we could have ever thought about. Because like he was a very violent child, even at a very young age. I
Yeah.
remember if my wife had spoken about that, but he was a very hostile child, and a lot of times I'd have to come running home, to tend to him because of the fact, and I'd be at work, and she'd be calling me, "Oh, you got to come home, and this is an emergency." And it's like, or once they were at a psychologist's office, and he was receiving his therapy, and Christian beat up his psychologist because of the fact that he dropped his Legos.
Man, you would think that the psychologist working with these kids would know how to like restrain them or something.
They're not allowed to restrain.
Really, even if they're being like attacked, they're not allowed to like, restrain the child until somebody can come get them.
Nope. And that child, and Christian made him bleed. So Joanne was holding him as much as she could. He was going to call 911, and she begged him to call me instead. So I went running. Thank God I worked 15 minutes away. So I went running to the office, and I put Christian on my lap, and I held him tight, and he fell asleep in my arms. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's
he,
intense
when
because
he woke,
that's something we see a lot of parents dealing with like in the support communities they're talking about, how to deal with like violent outbursts and whatnot
yeah,
um from these kids. And I know a lot of them struggle, and like I see a lot of parents who are just like I just don't know what to do anymore.
yeah,
And that's that like let's talk a little bit about, what that was like, sort of like dealing with that on like a mental and emotional level for you guys. Like did any of this, and I'll cut this out if you
no,
don't
it's
want to
all
answer this, but like did dealing with any of these like challenges with these children ever put strain on the marriage, or
oh
um
yeah.
like did that like what's how did this affect you guys?
It was very rough, and I literally had to go and look up because everybody talks about child abuse, but nobody thinks about parent abuse,
Right, yeah.
where the child is abusing the parent. And we actually looked up to see whether we had any services that can help us, and there was none. So because it only favors towards children, and
Right, because they expect you like as an adult to be able to handle it, right?
yeah, and it's crazy because like we were the whole family was living in chronic fear because of his violent outbursts.
Hmm.
So it wasn't something that was fun. It put a major strain on my me and my wife's relationship because I was having to leave work at all times of day, and I needed her to be a little stronger, but she was basically she's the emotional one and I'm the logical one.
Right, right, right.
So basically, I just cut off the emotion. I just do what I have to do, and I'm the one. I'm also the disciplinarian of the house, so I'm the one who has to enforce the rules. That no
Mm.
means no, and with Joanne, it's usually maybe we could get around this, and I'm like, no, no has to be no at times. Yeah,
Right, right. And that's really important for the development of any child, is
yeah,
enforcing that no.
yeah.
Um,
Especially with autistic or special needs children, that's like a critical thing.
Now, is Christian the one who currently lives in the apartment by himself with the
No,
assisted care?
no, no.
No. Oh, was Christian a foster then?
No, Christian is adopted by us. He was, yes, he's the biological half brother of the one that's living elsewhere.
Okay, so I mean, this was Christian was much younger, so I imagine he's a little older now. What is it like with him now?
Thank God it's become more passive. He's not physically aggressive, he's just verbally abusive.
Right,
So
right.
and
Well, it seems like he's maybe trying to get a hold and like find better ways of communicating his emotions. Um, did was that like through the help of like psychology? Is it like medication? Like, how did you guys get him to stop being physical and kind of change to a more verbal sort of
uh,
situation?
unfortunately we had to do a lot of outside placement. He
Gotcha.
lived a lot of his life outside of our home in therapeutic homes where they taught him. And the sad part is that he would, and he still does it till today. He'll act one way at school and at the hospitals, and at home he's totally different. And
Mm.
he'll tell us to our face that he won't do those things at school because we'll tell him, why don't you do that at school? And he tells us, because I'll get in trouble, which makes no
Wow.
sense. So it's like, and then you've got to question his level of intellect. We know that because he's on the spectrum of autism, and it's always a question mark as to is he suffering from autism or just intellectual disability. So it's,
Right.
it's always a question mark on our heads because he's been diagnosed with both. But which one is the one that's carrying the most weight? Because I mean, like he does a lot of characteristics of an autistic child, where he does a lot of stemming, he does a lot of repetitive dances. He has a high OCD factor with everything, whether it be sweets, songs, programs, whatever it is that kind of catches his interest. He just got to repeatedly, like if he says, hears a song that he loves, that we'll be hearing that song day in and day out, 24/7. He won't
Right.
stop.
Right. Yeah. That's
So
normal.
that, yeah, so that would be reflective of an autistic child. Not sure if that would be reflective of an intellectually disabled child. I don't know.
Right. It sounds like since he's able to differentiate like his behavior in various locations, I'm going to go ahead and say that's not the intellectual disability there.
Right.
That
And that,
sounds very intelligent.
yeah, but and
Basically,
that
he's telling you, sorry.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Because I used to tell the doctors this and everyone, like we'd be at the hospital emergency room because he had attacked us severely, and he'd be at the hospital, and meanwhile, while the nurses were there, he'd be crying, and the minute they would leave, he would start laughing at me, and he was only
Wow.
like 6 years old.
That sounds like there needs to potentially be another diagnosis there, and I need to see a psychiatrist for. Um,
Uh,
that's not wow. That's got to be very difficult to live with and coexist with because I mean that's your kid. You adopted him, you love him, but it's like
yeah.
wow, that's got to be rough.
Well, at one point in time, Joanne and I were actually, I contemplated separating, and not because of her. It was because of him to keep the rest of the family safe. I was going to live with Christian alone and have her live with the other two. To the point where we
Yeah.
actually rented a department that had a split level living scenario. What there was a studio apartment downstairs and the normal residency upstairs. And I was living downstairs with Christian, and she was living upstairs with the other two, even though we were in the same building. So whenever
Wow.
Christian would get violent, I would just take him downstairs, and that was that. But meanwhile, we always be together, until any violence.
I
So
mean, that's a that's a really solid definition of do what you have to do for your family, right? Wow.
yeah, yeah, the rent was phenomenally high, but it would have been it would have been just as expensive if I would have been renting a full apartment somewhere else.
Or paying doctor's bills.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, that's insane. So I guess like at this point you're in a sort of a position with him where it's at least like you can share a living space. Um how does this how did this affect like the other two? Like what did you perceive the effect of his behavior on your other two kids?
They were always in chronic fear. So, as I said, everyone in this house lived in chronic fear. And we got to a point where, and this is where life changed for us in another word bad way, is because Christian attacked his brother, the one that's not with us right now,
Okay.
attacked his brother with a metal chair, okay, a
Oh,
folding chair, and and I told his brother, "You don't have to take it. You can defend yourself." Okay. So, and I meant, just protect yourself. Don't just sit there and take the abuse, even though I had
yeah.
grandparents away and whatnot, but I wasn't always going to be around, so I wanted the Christian word to do something, just defend yourself, you know,
Right.
and he took that as it's now okay to be attacking Christian.
Well,
So he took it to
yeah, I mean,
a very
that
different level.
definitely sounds like how autistic minds work. It's they don't really have like the areas of gray. Everything is like black or white.
Exactly.
It's like I'm allowed to hit them or I'm not. And
Yes. And
you know,
I didn't think about that at that moment when I told him that. And even though I've explained it to him, it still doesn't sink. He said, "You told me that I could, hit him." That's all he got out of it.
right, right, and that makes sense too. But at the same time, if Christian were to attack him with another large metal object, at least he would have like the frame of mind to hold him off until somebody could get there rather than, like just take a beating and something terrible happen.
Yeah, but no, but unfortunately, it's like because of his brother's autism and the abuse that he took all throughout the younger years. That because, as I said, everybody was terrorized by Christian, and uh, and a lot of people actually judged us for us placing Christian away, but they didn't understand what was happening in our lives. Okay, so it's like it was difficult. And so now, unfortunately, Naheem is out of the home because of the fact that now he's physically trying to kill Christian, and he
Oh,
said it. He said it that he cannot live with us because he's afraid he'll kill Christian or he'll kill me. So so he's gone on a totally different binge.
well, you're definitely painting a different picture than Joanne did on her episode. Uh, wow.
Yeah,
This is I mean, usually we go with the real positive end of raising kids on the spectrum, but at the same time, it's good for us to get a look at like, how it can be sometimes with these kids, and like you keep talking about placing him outside of the home.
yeah,
Are these like, just for parents going through this sort of thing? Are these like therapy centers? Are these like
yeah.
group homes? Like what is the situation? Like what are these services
It was
that you're utilizing?
residential treatment centers. Like first, we started him with a I forget what it was called, just a general residency where they did therapy, but it wasn't a total lockdown facility. So and we used to visit him. He literally lived a couple of blocks away from us, and we used to have dinner with him, and it was nice. But it got to a point where they couldn't handle him anymore, and it had to escalate to a higher level. And then he went off to what you call an RTF, which is a residential treatment facility, and he's been in several of those throughout the
Hmm.
years. So I think a total of three or four. I don't
Wow,
remember. So now he's
that's a roller coaster, man. Like yeah, like and sort of like, can you talk to us then about like the complexities of like the emotions and mental states that you guys kind of went through? Because like, you know, even though like the prospect of violence was there, like these are still your kids, you still love them, you care about them, you want what's best for them, but you can't be near them, but you want to be near them. And like, kind of, can you
Yeah,
talk to us about that and like tell
sure.
us like, how was that? And like, did you end up like getting professional like help? Or did you go talk to a therapist or anything? Like, tell us how that all went.
Yeah, technically, it was a big landslide, because I felt, both me and Joanne both felt extremely guilty all the time, and a lot of times the thoughts of, did I do something wrong to make this child act the way he acted, and and the person always puts the guilt upon yourself, whether it be real or not. But you always question, what did I do? What could I have done better to try and fix the problem? And we followed all the instructions to the T of what was told to us by the therapist. They used to tell us, because Christian was couldn't read. They used to say, "Oh, let's." They literally drew pictures and put them on these laminated uh, folders, and then we hung them up on the walls. Okay, and Christian in his outburst, because we were supposed to tell him, look at the wall, and see the picture. This is what you got to do to calm down. You know what I mean? He ripped those things and tore them up. So it was
Wow.
like, it was a crazy scenario, and life was difficult. I mean, I like the perspective that my wife gave, that because she gave a very positive look at it, but I wanted to bring forth a view that I think a lot of people are facing the problems that we face and the guilt that we face, and sometimes they may not know what to do. Because I was looking at, I subscribe to a thing called Parent. Get the
Oh my
name of
God.
it.
Empowering parents.
Empowering Parent, yes. And that's a free subscription for people who have special needs children. And the subscription is literally totally free, and they send you articles every week. And I was printing out every article, putting and reading and putting it in a book. You know what I mean? And I followed the instructions that also gave, and it was like, but nothing seems to help. And as I said, we had massive amount of therapy for all three children, and sometimes it just nothing really helps. And as I said, Christian, I think basically with time and age, has matured to a point where now he recognizes that if he acts out and he and attacks us, he's going to, because he knows the threat that he will be taken out of his home, and that threat wasn't just placed by us; it was placed by the states of Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
and the judges and the cops, everyone who has spoken to him. So he knows that there's a risk involved, and I think that it's finally settling into his head at this age. Because he's 17, he's gonna be 18 in another like 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a very real and then it sort of kind of goes back to that whole like when he told you, "Well, I'll get in trouble there," and now he knows like I'm gonna get in trouble here too.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's finally starting to register.
You
But
know,
it's said
that's
that
wow.
it's like, we spent all these years trying to figure out what to do, and it's like, and there was literally no moment of relief.
Well, I mean, at this point, like, do you have like any positive interactions with him? Like, is there any times where like he's pleasant and
Oh
enjoyable to be
yeah,
around?
oh yeah. Every night we play Uno with him, and that can go either way. Not once again, not in a violent way, but he's very competitive, you know. So, and I'm not one to let him win just to let him win. You know, I want him to recognize that he can lose. Because a lot of
Right.
people will always let the child win just to keep them quiet in that day. No, it doesn't make a difference if they're autistic. You still have to let them recognize that they can lose.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
It's an
So he
important
gets
skill for any kid.
yeah, and he gets a little verbally obnoxious, but then we just like we blow it off, and that's it. And then he starts laughing, and we continue playing. So we do have positive moments. It's not everything's not negative. I don't want to pose it as that. Uh,
Hmm.
it's just a matter that I wanted to point out the fact that a lot of times, yes, people with autistic children do struggle, and those people who should look at us should not be judging what actions we take for the safety of the family, because
Yeah, that had to be like a crazy hard choice to make. Like nobody wants to see their child removed from their
yeah,
home.
especially when you have to call 911 because you're being physically attacked by a child that's so uncontrolled that it's like it's a danger for everyone in the household. Okay, so
Yeah,
we,
no,
we had
that's insanity.
yeah, I mean, like, literally, we have on record that we had to call 911 23 times living in Pennsylvania within 4 years.
Whew. Wow.
That's hard. So it's like, and that goes without question about the times in New York when he was just a little kid. And it was kind of comical because the cops would come and say, "What, you can't handle that little kid?" You know? And I said, "Okay, I'm going to back off, and now it's your turn." Next thing you know, they'd be calling backup. Literally, they'd be calling
Wait,
backup, and they'd have four cops there trying to control them.
well,
And
what did they think
I
you were
go
gonna
back
do?
to
Like,
them. Yeah, I go back to them
what?
and say, "What happened? Like, you can't control a little kid?"
Yeah, like what did they think you were gonna do? Like, just backhand him across the room? Like, you
Yeah.
can't. It doesn't do anything.
So yeah, because I
Oh
won't do
man,
nothing.
right?
Because every
Like,
time
I mean,
they would come, I'd have him pinned to the floor. I had no choice but to have him pinned to the floor and waiting for the cops to show. And then they would say, like, "What? You can't handle that little kid?" Because he was only a little kid. He was 6 or 7 years old. But
right,
I
right.
still literally had the bruises on my body.
It's wild. Like I actually don't have a problem with people who spank their children. Like I don't think that a spanking is a wrong thing if it's used correctly.
Yeah,
But like a lot of times with these kids with autism, that just doesn't register. So
yeah,
it's worthless to try that sort of thing.
exactly.
Um, so like what were you supposed to do? Like that's
Yeah.
wow. And they're like, "Oh, you can't handle little kids." Like, well, man,
Yeah, just back off. Okay, now it's your turn.
just like get out a microphone and just right in this corner.
Yeah, it's like we
Wow.
laughed about it after the fact, but it was like, but and those guys learned because they came to our house so many times. They knew after that not to question me.
So, like, when going through all these different situations with your children, like, what were the steps and the different services that you looked into, and like how efficient, like how I'm sorry, how effective were some of these services? Like you had mentioned that he had gone to a psychologist. You mentioned residential treatment centers and possible medications. And
Yeah,
I know from talking to Joanne, there were a ton of different therapies involved. So, like, what were the steps that you guys took and like in services? And like, if you were to say like, how effective was like the psychologist? How effective was the residential treatment centers? Like, just to give parents in similar situations like an idea of maybe stuff they can try first and
right.
then progressively go forward.
Okay. Well, a lot of people object to medicines, but unfortunately, sometimes, depending upon the child, you need that little bit of medicine just to calm them down and help them focus. So people shouldn't look too negatively at medicines. Um, as far as therapy, each child is different, and you know, with us, the therapy it stands to question whether it worked or didn't work. I'm sure it did because, as I said, right now he's still in therapy, and he's progressed over the years, but it took a very long time to see any progress. But I always recommend therapy without question, and sometimes, like especially in Pennsylvania, uh, going to the children and youth services, I actually love that agency because they provided us a lot of therapeutic care that we wouldn't have even known existed. So that's definitely a place that when people have a child in need, to go to them. And it doesn't always have to be because of a problem. It could be a question, a referral, or anything. They are there to help the family and the children. Like I came from New York, and the similar placement was ACS, Administration of Children's Services, and ACS was always looking to hang the parents. So they weren't really a supportive factor. But in Pennsylvania, definitely, it's something that if you have an agency similar, it's always a good resource to be able to find therapeutic care. Um, and once again, like for us, the child was in extreme danger in the house. So our having to place him, even though we felt guilty and our heart was breaking all the time in doing so, we had to place him just to keep everyone safe as well as him, because he was a danger to himself as well as everyone in the house. So, and that sometimes people need to recognize that sometimes they need to have him placed temporarily. It's not a long term. It's not forever. It's just for a couple of months, sometimes a couple of years, depending upon the child. Each child is different. They usually try to keep therapy placement within 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, and then if it has to go any further, they work with you. You know, but people shouldn't look down at something like that, especially if it's a child of critical with critical issues.
Yeah, for sure. That's I do see a lot of back and forth in the groups regarding like placement facilities and getting, out of home care and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, another thing that also helps is respite care, where that allows the parents to have a short break from the kids, and it's just a couple of hours. So that's something that a lot of parents don't know about, and you can request that from once again children's services, and sometimes your therapeutic agencies will also have the opportunity to provide respite care.
mm.
So
So
they can
do,
always ask for that.
so do you guys have to like were you so concerned about the behavior in the house that like maybe you were putting locks in your doors at night, like a
Uh,
just in case thing or
yeah. We have actually cameras throughout the entire house, and I still do, because I had to have proof of what was happening in our house.
mm,
So it's like in every room had a camera. And I mean, nowadays the bedrooms don't have cameras, but back in the days, I had to have cameras inside the kids' rooms, only because of the fact that Christian shared a room, and he'd go into the other kids' room and attack them. So I had to have cameras visualizing and seeing. So if any children came up with bruises, I'd have proof that it wasn't us.
yeah. Yeah, you know what? I have cameras throughout the house too. It I don't have, fortunately, and I'm eternally grateful I don't have those problems. Um, I think the worst behavior with mine I have is like if he doesn't want to do something, he yells, but he doesn't like yell words. He just "Bah!" like
Yeah.
loud. Um, so I'm very very fortunate in that aspect, but I have cameras as well, and that's just because I like to get. He's 7, and I like to kind of give him the illusion of privacy.
Yeah.
So like I'll go upstairs to make dinner and put the camera on
Yep.
just well, because you can't leave them alone
Yeah.
in any capacity. Like they had like the one day I was up there doing what I needed to do, and I turned around, he was climbing my lizard cage, and I'm like, oh my
God.
god. And fortunately, I can yell through the cameras like get down, and then like I get down, like no, like, and I have a 10-minute explanation. I'm like, you're not, don't climb that. Like
Yeah.
the lizard's in there, like what's going on? Uh,
That's funny.
Yeah, like, but like, and I don't know how any parent of an autistic child does not have cameras. Like, they're an absolute godsend. Like, if you need to get anything done in the house, hey, here, watch some TV.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch you on here while I vacuum the upstairs or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they. I don't know how parents with do it without cameras.
I mean, I recommend from Amazon. Amazon sells a camera that literally you don't have to worry about any wiring. It's a wireless camera, and it's called Y1. And I have them throughout the house. You get four of them for $100, and you place them all over the house, and all you have to do is plug them into the wall, and that's it.
Oh, the blink cameras. That's what I have.
Yeah,
Yep.
similar to that. Yes, but Blink
Yep.
are more expensive.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't pay for these. They were actually given to me as a
Oh,
gift.
lucky you.
Um,
They're
yeah.
great. I would love Blink. I just can't afford them.
Oh, okay. See, like I had no idea. Like, and
Yeah,
obviously, this is not a paid advertisement because I had no clue.
yeah,
And, like, it was literally just like somebody like, hey, like, my girlfriend at the time was using a blinker to for like the doorbell and like for babysitting her
yes,
dog.
yes.
And then it was actually my mom and my stepmom who were like, because I was talking about like, hey, like, I was in the process of moving in with my girlfriend. I was like, I need to set up cameras so I can keep an eye on Logan when I can't be in the room. And they're like, well, we have these ones, and they gave them to me.
Nice.
So that was fortunate. Um, but yeah, no cameras. Oh my god,
Yeah,
I don't know what I'd do without them.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, a lot of people think they have to get the wired cameras, and wired cameras are nice, but they're very expensive to have installed. So it's like
Yeah.
that's why as I said, I love the Y1s, and they're very inexpensive, and they do wonders. So if
Hey,
anybody who ever needs to do camera stuff, that's what I would recommend.
hey, who cares what they cost as long as they do the job, right?
True, true. Yeah.
But
I,
I mean,
I was a budget director, so I'm always looking at the cost.
I was just poor my entire life.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so, so I'm always looking at the cost too. Um but so besides like I kind of like where this conversation is going, like kind of like from services to kind of like tools. Now we're talking about cameras. Like what are some other like objects, items, tools that you use in the house to kind of help you with these kids?
Well, I actually had to put at one point in time a dual entry uh, key lock where you have to open both sides with the key. Okay,
Right. Okay. Was it on like
and
the bedroom door or the front door?
the front door,
Ah,
because
eloping.
yeah, what happened was that Christian had a bad habit of running. So the only way of keeping him from running is I had to put that special type lock, which I ended up getting into a violation over because it's a fire safety issue.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple of times from some other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I had to take him down, but it was like, but I explained to the fire department, and that was the only thing that wiped the violation is I showed that he was a flight risk. So it was the only thing that I could do to keep him from running into the street and endangering his life.
So, what did you do for the door after that? Like they made you take those off. Like
Yeah.
what sort of lock did you install then?
Well, what you do is another option, which I wish I would have thought about first, was to put the chains, the usually the chain, and you put it really high up so that they can't reach it.
We're
So
talking about super intelligent kids though, and I've heard plenty of stories of these kids getting like broomsticks out and undoing those.
that's true, yeah. But once again, it's there's no really easy mode to that.
Right,
uh,
right, right.
it's hard to say. Those are the things I tried. I also tried a special lock that wasn't a chain. It's that you find like in the hotels that it falls into a hook with a ball, and
Okay.
so that you find that in most hotels. So I tried it. I tried putting those on. But once again, where a kid wants to get out, he's gonna get out. They'll put a chair. They'll do whatever they have to do to get out.
Like climb out the window,
Yeah, yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, yeah, there certainly is. That's um so how long did the flight risk issue persist?
Ooh. But once again, he wasn't with us a lot of the time. So when he was with us, it lasted about what 4 or 5 years, around there, about 4 or 5 years. I had to ask my wife because I couldn't remember the exact amount of time.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Wow. That's nerve-wracking in itself. So you have this kid who you don't know if he's gonna punch you or just vanish.
yep. So,
I how did you guys how did you guys like keep it together and like calm it, because like just from talking to both of you, like you're really like nice people, and like you have like these happy dispositions, and you're able to kind of see through the negative and like appreciate the positive. Like how did you manage to keep your mental health together like
uh,
that?
well, we definitely went to a lot of therapy because it wasn't just the kids going to therapy. We were also going through therapy, and that helped a lot. Also, the church helped a lot. The caring table that Joanne used to attend, that helped a lot because once again we realized that we weren't alone, and there was a lot of people out there who were having the same problems. So just being able to communicate with them. We also went to what was it, Napa?
Yeah.
There's a program out there that's really good. I can't remember the name right now. I'm not good with names. I apologize. Uh, but I will text you the name so that way you could, let people know what the name was. But
Yeah, yeah, all this stuff that you talk about so far, the empowering parent and stuff. I'm going to link all that in the description. So anybody listening to this is like, oh, I wonder what that is. Like they can go down in the description and check it out.
yeah, as I said, there is another organization that's out there that really helps. And once again, it's a matter of just being able to have conversations with other individuals that do the same. And I know my wife is also trying to do something on the caring table online to help people with that, to just open up discussions, because that's sometimes the best thing to do is just to be able to talk to people and just share your moments, because sometimes people will bottle it up because they don't feel like that nobody else is going to listen or care, or or other people are going to judge you. But when you have another person who is going through the same thing and now you're talking to them, now you guys aren't judging each other. You're actually saying, "Oh yeah, I had the same problem. This is what I did," and you guys bounce off ideas off of each other, and that was a major help for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely hear. I'm actually in the process for several weeks now. I've had a Discord community available. Um, I think I have two members in there now. I always link an invite to that in the description too.
Cool.
But that's kind of the idea. That's kind of the goal, is to kind of create a space where parents can come together and have those conversations.
Yeah,
Um, and I have it all like divvied up. So like there's like a dad's channel and a mom's channel and grandparents and step parents, even, and siblings, and just everywhere people can just kind of like get together with other people who are maybe experiencing the same stuff. And I'm kind of hoping that that turns into like a lively, active community.
yeah,
Yeah, it's that's great that you guys had that too.
yeah,
That sort of like in person thing too. I mean, it's why I do this podcast. Um, I've said it on several episodes now where, I had my son with his diagnosis, and I didn't know anybody, and I just felt by myself. And, I went through a lot of therapy as a kid for a lot of different things. I was never like an overly violent child or anything, just like
right.
parent divorce and depression and all that mess. Right. So, um, and I remember just having the ability to talk to somebody who gets it, or at least who I thought got it, really really helped out. So that's actually the reason I started this podcast, was just so I could talk to people and have somebody to relate to a little bit,
Yeah,
um just because there are those times where you're just like, man, like I got it tough with these kids, I just don't know what to do, like, or they have this sort of behavior and I can't deal with it, and like, or man, I just wish my kid would use the toilet, you
yeah,
and, and you're sitting there and you're like, and like your buddy next door is like, man, my kid's been using the toilet since he was 2. And you're like, must be nice. Must be nice.
yes. We
You
went
know.
through that also.
So yeah, it's like I gotta get on this podcast and I'm just like, hey, my kid doesn't use the toilet. And they're like, me too. And it's like, oh great.
That brought back memories. Yeah.
Oh, was,
Uh,
was potty training a struggle with them as well?
uh, A little bit. It's thankfully once again we were involved in a lot of programs like even when they started their schooling, they went to child study center in Staten Island, and they addressed a lot of the issues, and they actually were the ones who helped us get them potty trained. So it took a lot of the burden off of us, but we still had to make sure that we did whatever they did at school, we had to do at home. If we missed that then everything would be ruined.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you just have to stay on top of everything and follow the instructions as what we are told.
Man, you guys certainly have had a heck of a ride for the last 20 years now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jeez. But it is really nice though to see that you guys are able to remain like good humored and like at least like laugh about some of the stuff that happened and like stay in good spirits about it and like just keep trudging forward and just like keep that same energy with like
Yeah.
just doing what's best for those kids.
Yeah, and another piece of advice I could give is just try not to hold on to the negative thoughts. To try to always remember the positive. Even capturing pictures on Facebook, of the good stuff and having it come back to you. Because Facebook is good for that. They return back photos that you took when they were younger, and you're like, wow, look the smile on their face, and that brings back positive memories that help you have a little bit more strength to last a little longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oh, and I mean we all have some favorite photos of our kids. What are your favorite photos of your kids look like?
uh, I,
The motorcycle.
yeah, my wife,
Was there like a setting or like maybe you're at a park or like what like when you're looking at those photos, like which one's your favorite? Like in like
yeah, and I literally,
what kind of memory is attached to that?
yeah, our backyard, because our backyard was humongous to the point where we literally being in Staten Island, we bought the house that we bought because it had a yard that was 100 by 100. It was a humongous yard,
That's
and
big, yeah.
yeah, it was humongous. So it's like so what we did is we built a uh, a
Nami.
jungle gym.
Sorry.
Oh.
It's Nami.
Okay, the organization that I was referencing before was called NAMI.
Oh, okay, Nami, okay.
So yeah, so we did a jungle gym for them, and I also bought them like my wife. I'm not a person who can be dared to do anything. We're going to a therapeutic session, and as I'm passing, I see a guy selling children's motorcycles, and I always wanted a motorcycle. And my wife goes, "See, your kids could have that, and you can't." And she goes, "If you'd never dare buy them that, that's a bad thing to tell me." So I pulled over immediately. And I didn't just buy one, I bought three.
Like I'll tell
So,
you what, I'll live vicariously through these kids.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, I can't have it, they're going to have it. So, and it was fun just watching them with their smiles on their faces as they were literally riding on these motorcycles. And it was safe because they were only like 3 to 4 years old. Okay, but these were suited for a child, and it only ran like 2 miles per hour if it went that fast. But but it was funny just watching them. I still remember Naheem because I had also gotten them the trucks, and Jose had fallen to the ground off his motorcycle, and Naheem was coming with his truck, and he ends up running over Jose. And when I got him off the floor, he wasn't even crying. He was just like, "What happened there?" And he had the tire marks on his face, and I have that on a photo. And it was just, every time I find that photo, I show it to them, and we all start laughing. You know, I had also bought them an MC jacket, from a store that used to sell used children's stuff called Once Upon a Child, and but they only had one MC jacket. So I bought it, and they all used to interchange with them because they were the same size. And I have pictures of that, and their big smiles as they're doing the Ponzi thumbs up. Those are things that you look forward to, and every time I look at them, I still, it brings joy back to me.
It's good that my audience is predominantly between the ages of 36 and 48 because we're going to understand what a Fonzie thumbs up is.
That's true. I forgot that.
Uh, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it makes sense that I don't really have any younger listeners. I think 75% of my audience is between 36 and 48. There's a little bit in the 50s, and then like a very small percentage are between 22 and 30.
That's funny.
That's great though that you sort of have those photographs and those memories of those kids. Um, because like we really did spend a lot of this episode really talking about some very difficult things to deal with. So it's nice that like there's a little bit of a light in the darkness there.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't all bad. I'm not gonna pretend like it was. It wasn't all bad. We did have our positive moments. We did go through a lot of vacations, especially at Dutch Wonderland, which was a kid's blessing. It's a place specifically made for little kids, and we used to take them there every year, and they enjoyed it. So it's like, and despite their difficulties, they enjoyed it, and it was fun. Same thing, Great Wolf Lodge, and different vacations. Even just going to the park was a little adventure in itself.
That's great. So Jesus, at this point, like we're kind of coming to a close, and is there anything that you want to talk about? Any you had reiterated a little bit about the caring table. Do you want to tell the audience about that again?
Sure. Once again, the key things I think will help people is being able to talk to other people. So anybody trying being able to set up a caring table, even on their own, it's
It's Mike.
but my wife once again is trying to build it online, and hopefully once we get that up and running, we'll send you guys a link. But in the meantime, caring tables can be something that you can have on your own. It just you and your friend or any other person that you are associated with at even at the clinic, because everybody nine out of 10 times is gonna have the same problems as you're having. So if you could associate with somebody and start talking, that's a caring table in itself. Um, but it's just a matter of just keep a positive attitude, and just try and keep the positive memories, so that way it does, when the negative times come, it doesn't bring you down. One last thing is always be one-on-one with your spouse. That's the key thing. Don't give up on the spouse, because one person dealing with it is very, very difficult. So if you guys have a spouse, stick with it and stay together.
Yeah, it can definitely put some stress on some things, and sometimes it's hard to really be there emotionally for them when they're breaking down,
Yeah.
because you're just as frustrated, but like they've just reached that, and the cup is overflowed, and now they need you to be there for them emotionally, and sometimes that's hard to do, and but at least like you have the ability to empathize with that, and you're
Yeah.
just like, I get it, and they're like, and like they, especially when they're telling you like they're feeling guilty because they have a certain emotion that day associated with the kid's behavior, and like they feel bad because they felt that way, and you're just like, listen, I feel that way sometimes too, we're all human out here, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So hey, Jesus, this has been great sitting down and talking to you. I'm really glad that we were able to talk about these subjects because I haven't really gotten to chat about that yet. And I know there are a lot of parents out there who are dealing with, violence in the households and living in fear and not knowing what to do. So hopefully this is a great resource for some people, and really helps get them on a track to resolving those issues.
Yep. I hope so too.
Hey, thanks again for sitting down with me. This has been great, and I hope you have a great evening.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. With that, parents, that wraps up our first season of the Brighter Spectrum. As we move into the new year, we're making a few changes. First, we'll be transitioning to a bi-weekly schedule to better balance our time. Second, we're excited to grow our Discord community to provide even more support for autism parents. We'll also be increasing our activity in the Facebook group. Most importantly, we'll be taking a short break over the holiday season to recharge. Podcasting during this busy time can be challenging, so we'll be back mid-January with fresh episodes. Until then, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Happy holidays. Thank you for tuning in to the Brighter Spectrum podcast. If you have any comments, questions, or stories to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out to me at BrighterSpectrumPodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and keep shining a light on the journey of parenting.
Thank you for listening.